Today's passage is the first book of Samuel, chapter 17, verses 31 to 54. Who can fail to enjoy this story of David defeating Goliath? The ridiculous odds stacked against David, his courage before the giant, his rejection of Saul's armour, his skill with a sling, the simplicity of his tactics, the victory and the triumph that followed. A favourite Sunday school story that we probably know well. The key to David's success was threefold. He knew his strengths and weaknesses, he used his skills, and he trusted God. He didn't stand before Goliath as a helpless child, or perhaps teenager. He was a seasoned fighter in defending his flock against wild animals. He knew what he could do. This was another example of fighting off a threat. He had a well-honed skill, and he knew how to use it. His aim, his hand-eye coordination were accurate. And simple as his weapon was, it could be deadly in the hands of an expert. David was an expert from much practice. Even allowing for all that, he was up against a terrifying opponent. He'd never used his slinging quite this way before, but he trusted God who was giving him that inner call to respond. And he called to mind the times past when he'd been afraid and had drawn courage from God to fight off the wild animals, and he stood firm. One mistake we often make when we're up against a challenging situation is to compare ourselves with others unfavourably. David didn't say, "Oh, I'm too young. Oh, I'm not a soldier. Oh, I've no experience with battles." He didn't focus on what he was not or what he couldn't do. He focused on who he was and what he could do. When Saul offered his armour and his weapons, that comical scene of the boy disappearing underneath metal plates quite too big for him, David realised that he had to use his own resources, not Saul's, which were just inappropriate for him. We do often tend to beat ourselves up because we're not the same as other people, instead of remembering that we're not meant to be the same as each other. We're differently gifted. And without vanity or pride, we need to recognise our own gifts and resources and use them. Another mistake we often make is to judge by appearances. Appearances would have been against David and in favour of Goliath. And that's what terrified the whole Israelite army. Goliath was very big and very strong, and he talked a big talk. David was small and unimpressive. But in terms of inner resources, David was better off. Appearances can often be misleading. I'm reminded of Greta Thunberg, who, despite her young age and her small size, has had such an astonishing effect on the world and on young people and on the climate change campaign. In just 2 years of public speaking, she's had such an impact, and she's received several honours and awards for her work. Part of the fascination with her is the contrast between appearances and reality. So, what are the key points to remember when we face a challenge? 1. Focus on who I am, not who I'm not. 2. Know my own strengths and use them. 3. Don't be intimidated by appearances, but look within. And 4. Draw on God's strength, which is made perfect in weakness. It worked for David, and it can work for us too.